What's that? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming and kind of being the audience on the rainy day for this event. Hey, Avi. So the idea here for today's panel was to kind of talk about student voice. And so in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Jen to moderate, since a couple of the students here are my own, and we figure she'll be an impartial moderator for them. Plus, she's just better at talking with people. And the main thing that we want to talk about is it's student voice, and an experience that I had was working with our students. It was really great to have their input as part of a committee of students that we have. And in the process, I think we kind of encountered that there are students at other schools doing some really interesting things. So I thought it'd be a really great way to kind of have the voice of a few students tell us about their interest in technology, and then kind of learn from them instead of the other way around for today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jen, and thanks. All right.
Hey. I don't normally moderate panels. So we wanted to start off today just having you guys introduce yourselves. Let us know who you are, what school you're from, and how it is you're involved in technology at your school outside of just using it in the classroom. So if you want to, Layla, you're right there.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm a junior at the Dalton School, and I take computer science at school, and I'm the organizer of a conference we run called Bit by Bit, Breaking the Barrier for Girls in Tech, which, as you can gather from the name, aims to get more girls interested and sticking with computer science as a potential, career path.
Awesome. My name is Diego Flores. I go to the United Nations International School on the Lower East Side. And the way that I'm involved with technology is I run a nonprofit called Teen Tech New York. We're 4 years old, and we host an annual conference at the Microsoft Technology Center where we invite different speakers from any industry that use technology. It could be animation, music, programming, whatnot. Like last year we had Blue Apron, Blue Sky Animation, Ableton, a music production company, Microsoft, Google. So we invite all of these speakers to come in for one day and give workshops and talks, just general talks about technology, to groups of students in very small groups, 20 to 30 people. And which is really cool because we have over 200 students, so we can have small enough sessions that every single student can ask questions, either about their work or how they got into technology. So it's a really great opportunity for students that usually in their school don't have access to these sort of programs or even a basic computer science program to come in with us for one day at the Microsoft Technology Center and just learn and get as much information as possible from these people that work in their fields.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Kevin. I'm from the Cristo New York High School, and how I'm connected from this is there's a program called Script Ed, and that's where we learn. There's a bunch of students that we can learn JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and so just learn in that class we just learn the basic coding fundamentals. And I'm in a club called Minds Over Matter, and we just learn more after that class, so we just learn more about the basics of coding, and so how we can use it to apply it to our day-to-day life and help our school websites.
Hi, I'm Marcus. This is Alon. We're both from Dwight School, which is here, and we're the co-presidents of the Student Tech Committee, which is kind of like the student council but for technology in the school. And we had some different projects within the school related to technology, like overseeing a different one in a laptop program here, advocating for student privacy, creating a VR lab for the school, and the conference we're going to be piloting is the SparkX conference, which Alon will elaborate on. And finally, the computer science class, which Michelle piloted before, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
So hi, I'm Ilan. I'm a senior here at the Dwight School, as Marcus said earlier, and one of the most exciting projects that Marcus mentioned earlier when he was discussing the projects that that our school student tech committee oversees is the upcoming Spark Labs conference, which is essentially a conference on innovation design and entrepreneurship, which we hope to launch this coming March 3rd, which is next week. And this is basically a conference where it's going to be student-led workshops where other students around New York City who are also high school students as well will attend workshops that are led by the students that are going to be sharing their passions within those three sections: design, innovation, and in entrepreneurship, essentially, and trying to establish a network amongst the New York City high school students who are interested in those three subjects, essentially. And that's basically the overview of our school, how Marcus and I are involved in technology at our school.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. So the point of this panel was to provide students a voice. We got a lot of questions from people in our group about technology in schools, but I wanted to start out first by asking you guys, and you don't have to answer in order, but what got you interested in actually starting work on what it is you're working on at your schools outside of class? Like what made you, what really got you interested in this? You wanna? No? Diego, do it.
Yeah. So for what I do, which is the nonprofit Teen Tech New York, I started that in, okay, funny story. I didn't start it. So in 2014, a senior at my school, at the UN school, had some contacts at Microsoft. So he worked for around a year meeting people, networking, to get to the point person that was able to then give him the space for that one day in the year. So we have one Microsoft liaison that allows us to reserve the space for free for that one event. So I actually joined last minute as a photographer because I needed community service hours for my year. And then I ended up talking to someone who ran another nonprofit called Indiegogo, which I had no idea what it was. And then it turns out I was talking to the guy who was the founder of the company. After 20 minutes of just chatting with him and him telling me what he was doing, so that sparked my interest, just the fact that I was talking to the founder of the organization without even knowing it at that event that I was just joining because I wanted to take pictures to get 4 community service hours to pass. So then I started shadowing my friend who was the senior, who actually brought me into the organization, and then just seeing the direct results of that event, as opposed to just having an event where 50 people sit in a room and listen to someone speak, that you can actually speak directly and ask questions to the people who were involved in these organizations and industries. That was really cool, so that got me hooked. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years.
All right. Layla, I'm really interested to hear a little bit about your conference, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually attended Bit by Bit in its first year. And I had already been taking computer science, so I knew I had an interest, but the conference itself actually really heightened my interest and really inspired me. So our keynote, one of the keynotes that year was Mindy Kaling, so that was pretty cool to actually, I felt cool, coding, you don't really think it's cool, but it was cool. I was like, this is something that I could really see myself doing for a while. And then we have our a mentorship session over lunch, so you just sort of have lunch and chat with a successful female engineer, and the person I was speaking with was from Facebook. So for me, sitting down and having lunch with a female engineer at Facebook was probably the greatest thing that had ever happened to me, which is a little sad, but like it was so cool. So the conference is aimed to inspire girls, and it inspired me. And so as soon as I could get involved, I did. And this is my second year involved, and my first year at the helm, and just doing all the work and speaking to all the women in the industry shows me, one, how important the work is to get more girls involved, and two, it just keeps convincing me how much I want to continue. So that's my story.
That's great.
I can share a little bit. So first, I'd like to start off by sharing how the student tech committee at our school formed. So essentially, in the past 3 years, our school has exhibited probably the most tech advancements that we've had. We've adopted the one-to-one laptop program where each student has their own laptop now. And so with all these tech changes that were happening in our school, a lot of students were interested getting more involved with technology in our school as a result of that. And on top of that, we had a new program installed, which was the Spark Tank program, which essentially enables students to raise their own ideas to essentially a group of panelists at our school who would be judging their ideas and then providing funding for them if the students request that funding. So after seeing all these changes in our school, the first thing that happened was a senior of last year's class, was very involved in both these things, and he brought me into his idea of creating a student tech committee at our school. And then once he graduated, Marcus and I became the presidents of that committee, which was started last year. And then on top of that, Marcus and I saw, first of all, we were both involved in Spark Tank at our school, and we were really amazed by this program. And we were also we felt very fortunate that we have this opportunity because we were able to take our ideas. We brought several projects to this program and have received funding for them. And we decided that it would be really great if students at other schools could have an opportunity like this, something similar to that Spark Tank nature that's essentially established at our school. And we thought we might start small by creating a conference, and obviously we are not at that stage where we can provide funding for the New York City high school students' ideas in general, but we thought we could start off by creating a small conference where different students could network and share their ideas with one another and see how they can build off each other's essentially sparks or passions and interests. And that's how those two things were founded in our school, and we hope that they'll be growing after we leave with the student tech committee that's in place right now as a part of our legacy.
Okay.
All right. So what got me interested in coding and technology is really when they recommended me to Script Ed, and they at their we just made many websites, many projects. We just made many websites, many projects, such and such, and we really just got to know the basic fundamentals of it. And even when going on and on, we can in the clubs we can we would be able to do things with bots. You can control, certain, you can put tasks to those bots and control certain things, and you can make it do certain things. So that was really led me, and the fact that you can do that is pretty cool. And so upon that,
It sounds like a great experience.
I mean, also, we have a lot of other people in the Script Ed program too. So I know that technology is changing the things at our school, and I really want to just apply it to the websites, and we're trying to make an app for our school. So that would really help. And seeing as technology is changing everything, the way we live, the way we do our day-to-day tasks, it really needed necessity to know, and that's really sparking.
That's actually a really good point in terms of change. And any of you can answer any of my questions. How have you seen technology change your school since you've been there, or even since you started education? Have you seen technology shift anything in your schools?
Yeah, sure. I used to be here since 7th grade, and during that time, basically everything was done on paper, or homework assignments, everything. Apart from smartboards, everything was basically pen and paper, even essays. And because of that, at our middle school level, and
Got it.
at that point,
And now we have our kindergarten students even using iPods and iPads. So
it's crazy. And
It totally is.
it's
really
a big
actually
change,
crazy.
of course.
Yeah.
It's going from pen and paper, where we were doing that in 7th grade, and taking that and leaping over to technology. It's definitely a big change that's happened over the past 3 years.
And
That's happened over the past 3 years.
it started around I'd say a high school where the one-to-one program initiative came forward, and the school gave everyone laptops in high school and middle school, and then eventually gave iPads to elementary school students. And at first, it was quite chaotic, especially the new MyDwight system, because basically every teacher was forced to use MyDwight, and they hated it. So they'd say, oh yeah, MyDwight's optional, don't use it, just write down your homework on your paper instead. And obviously that was kind of chaotic. So the school made efforts to change that. So after a couple of years, the chaos kind of died down, and we got a sort of good system rolling on where all teachers use MyDwight, which is like I didn't explain this before, but MyDwight's basically a schedule planner and kind of an online gradebook and an assignment hub. So after the one-to-one program being piloted and the MyDwight and obviously all smartboards being replaced by TVs, the school took a turn for the better. And a lot of people might think it's ridiculous when you see like elementary school students like having iPads and iPods, but in the end, technology allows them to learn in a lot of different ways. So and to that extent, it's been a good change.
Diego, Layla, Kevin.
So we also have a laptop program at our school where every kid gets a laptop. So that's all obviously changed the technology culture, in that we write our essays on laptops, and I don't know, you can write longer essays, it's efficient, so that's for the better. So I've been at Dalton since kindergarten, so I'm sort of talking about 12 years here. It's not really just the recent past. But we also use it's not my Dwight, because I don't go to Dwight, but like a very similar online system where teachers are putting everything online now, which is it's helpful and everything. And when they use it properly, we were talking about this before. When they use it properly, it actually works really, really well. That being said, it not always used properly. And then the one thing I wanted to say about sort of technology, and this is a little more, it's a little beyond the laptops, but I was reading on our website recently something about a 5th grade Spanish class taking a VR trip to Havana, Cuba, which was like you said, seeing kindergartners on iPads. It was like 10-year-olds with these massive VR things, and they're in Havana, Cuba, which not everyone can go to Havana, Cuba right now. So I think that was something makes me hopeful for the future, is that this will be the future of Spanish students practicing Spanish in Havana, Cuba. So I don't know, things are changing, and it's pretty cool.
It is cool to watch.
So that's something that actually really excites me, what you just said, that example of using VR. That to me is the purpose of technology implementation in the classroom, using it to that extent that it's actually helping the students learn. What I found, and I've been at UNIST for 8 years, the UN school for 8 years, and it's been a very drastic change to the point where now the IT department looks completely different than it did 4 years ago. So we started very similar to you. We started just pen and paper. Then slowly we started bringing in Dell laptop carts. So we would have these laptop carts that were running Windows Vista, and we were using those for maybe 1 or 2 classes, just the classes that really needed them, maybe math to draw graphs or whatnot. And then a year after that, we started bringing in MacBooks, so borrowing them from carts. Then a year after that, we started, very similar to you, each student having their own laptop. Then 2 years ago, kindergartners started having iPads in the classroom. And that actually was a pretty drastic change, because all the high schoolers started getting really jealous of the kindergartners because they didn't have iPads, which would have been really, really cool when I was in kindergarten. But so in those 8 years, just a 4-year interval, we went from pen and paper to every single student having a laptop, to kindergartners starting using iPads in the classroom, to adopting a new assignment application called Schoology. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that. So we've been using Schoology for 2 years now, and it actually took an entire year for the faculty to get used to it and actually learn how to do it. So that's another thing, which was a very drastic change. The students got it within like a week, but that's something that I think we need to work. I'm not sure what the solution to that is, but I think that faculty needs to have a little bit more of a training period to really understand how to use the either the software or the application, because in the end they are the ones that are going to be using it for either assignments or long-term projects for school, or attendance. We use Schoology now for attendance, grades, where we get all of our results. We no longer use our school portal to get our report cards. We use Schoology. So if the teachers don't know how to use it, it's really bad for us, because how much time do I have to answer this question? I have a lot to say about this because it's been a drastic change.
Let's try to keep it concise. But
Gotcha.
I mean, if because we want to move.
Yeah,
forward. But, I mean,
definitely.
you're bringing up. This actually came up. We did a dry run last week, and this actually came up during our dry run. And I wanted to keep it positive for the most part, but I think it's really important because all the students on our dry run actually. I'm sorry to talk a lot.
No, go ahead.
But all the students on our dry run actually hit on this is faculty training, which I thought was really interesting. They see it too.
Yeah, because I mean, in the end, we want you to have an easy time using it, because if you have an easy time using it, it makes it so much easier for us. And then vice versa. If it's easy for us, then we can just explain it to you better, and you don't have to go to IT every single break to ask them, how do I make an assignment? So that's really what we're looking for, just some sort of solution for all teachers to be able to know how to use the software, so we can just have a much more efficient process in terms of assignments, homework, whatever it may be.
Do you have yeah.
It hasn't been I haven't been in the school to see a drastic change, because I've only been for like maybe 2 years.
It can cover also the school you were at last if you want.
Yeah, and my middle school, they use iPads to like read articles and like analyze those articles online on Newsella actually, and so it's just been a lot better. And right now in high school, they have been using Chromebooks and Canvas actually. Canvas is like where you just the teachers put all the notes and everything that they need to put on, maybe homework, extra copies of homework if they need to, and anything else. But to build on what Diego said, it's like the teachers need to like learn how to actually use it, because if we're giving them these resources to use and they're not using it properly, I guess, then there's no point in us learning about it and using it as well. And so maybe a solution can be to dedicate at least one day, I guess, in the summer or anything else to actually train them. Someone like from IT can train them, and now they can be all, like, prepared. And so actually like make our classes efficient and more like, so we can
I think that's important. Did you want to? Yeah,
I wanted to add something. So, like, I'm sure everyone at this table can relate to this, but, like, when we were in middle school, there's this feeling with carrying your phone at school, or even anything like a laptop or something. That was something that you weren't really allowed to do. Like, you were told to leave your phone at home and not bring tech to school, right? And, like, these days, we're all carrying at least one of the, like, it's an essential item now. It's more, I think it's even more important to have your laptop than your books at school, and that just emphasizes the change that's happened over the, like, past couple of years with technology in general at any school.
So it's interesting. Someone from our group, is she here? She's not here. When someone from our group actually submitted a question about middle school, which I think is, I think this is a good segue. Her question was, what did you learn in middle school which helped you prepare for high school? I think I want to turn that a little bit to, do you feel like with the restrictions, so I work in a middle school, and we actually have pretty tight restriction on technology, even though I agree with you, it's really helpful. Do you feel like those restrictions that you got in middle school were helpful, or do you feel like you needed more freedom to use that technology?
I actually need to apologize. I have to leave at this moment, but I want to thank you guys for for listening to me. And
Thank you very much for coming.
Leave the mic with Marcus.
Yeah. Thank you.
So those restrictions were basically a pain, like a huge pain. And looking at it now, if you were able to use the laptops back then, it would have saved a lot of work to do on paper, and a lot of it's like transcribing, because a lot of the time you're like writing stuff on paper in school, but then you gotta transcribe it to the computer at home. Otherwise, it was just frustrating because you wanted to do something that was way easier on the computer, but you just couldn't. I guess like from a different standpoint, it helps with the fact that it's not the technology is not distracting you in class, which a lot of even now like a lot of students are still distracted by technology, even all these web filters and all that. So to some extent, it was helpful for some students, but in the end, I think it mostly was more of a restriction that could have been lifted.
Could I add something to that?
Please.
Yeah. So at my school, we're we're at the point where the students, and this is mostly in the lower grades, they were getting so distracted with the computers that over time there were more and more restrictions being added to the computers. So first it was network restrictions. So they weren't able to. We couldn't access Urban Dictionary at one point because the filters were just so general that we couldn't even access sites that we actually needed for some assignments. And that's not to say that it was bad, because I understand that it can be very, very frustrating for a teacher when they're trying to teach a class and they tell their students, please go to this site because that's the site that we're going to base this class around. And then she goes around or he goes around, and then 10 of the 20 students are on Facebook or are like watching videos on YouTube or playing Minecraft. We had like an entire year where everyone was like installing Minecraft on the computers. So, and we're at a point now where for the lower grades, they've taken all the MacBook Airs away and now they're just running Chromebooks, which is very efficient and is very cheap. But where they can't install they can't install actual applications on the computers. It's all browser-based, which is great and for some things. But what if you need to, you're in an exam, and for this particular course, you need to write an essay, but they don't want network connectivity and you can only use Word. That's something you can only get with MacBook Airs. Because Chromebooks are only web-based, there are some things that you can do and are actually a hindrance to the students when they actually need to use the computers for something. So there's kind of like two sides of it, of how much is too much restriction and how much leeway can you give the students to the point where it becomes a distraction.
Absolutely. Layla, go ahead.
I'll keep it brief, but I think the distraction point is a good one, that, you know, people often are not using their computers in class for what they should be, and, you know, kids are getting, you know, we're pretty creative. They're like, oh, what are you doing? And you like quickly switch the screen and turn it around, and like, yeah, so I see the point that, you know, there's definitely there's a ton of distractions that come with computers, but I think that I remember working with computers in middle school, and I think it I don't know, it might sound silly, but like the art of like a Google search query, you know, like typing in the right thing to look up, in playing around a little bit and maybe breaking some of the rules, I actually learned a little bit. I can't think of a solution, but I just wanted to make the point that yes, the restrictions are important to avoid distractions, but yes, the distractions are important because you also learn something a little bit. Maybe not what you're supposed to be learning, but you learn something there as well. Just me.
Did you want to? No.
I kind of agree with everyone that what they said on here, and that restrictions were actually needed, and at the time, like they weren't needed, and they weren't needed because of, you know, of distractions, and like they would use it for the wrong reasons and not actually use it to do their work. But if we actually had them, we would get stuff done more faster and actually better. But restrictions were needed and are still needed because there's always going to be that one person just getting not, yeah, one guy not doing their work. So.
Yeah. So my next question is going to be a little bit of a turn. Can you guys talk a little bit about a project or something you've done in one of your classes with technology that's been really cool, interesting, something you feel like is worth talking about? I've got a nod. I think that means you go first.
Yeah, I had two jump into my head. One because I'm working on it right now, and one because it was in 6th grade. I don't know why I remember 6th grade so well. But in 6th grade, we did this. It's called Archeotype. We installed a program on our computers, and it was like essentially a digital archaeology dig. So we were like, we were each assigned like a plot of land, and we had to dig and like find an artifact and catalog it. And so that was a cool process because like I'm never gonna go. I'm not really gonna go out and dig any other point in my life. So doing it digitally, and then so not only having the objects in front of you, but like finding them yourself and then cataloging it and then studying it. I thought that was super cool. And so that was one thing that came into my mind. And then I'm actually working on a project right now in a transdisciplinary class I take. It's a computer science class, but with physics as well. So I'm currently like modeling the Earth's orbit around the sun, and I have a quiz tomorrow. This is why it's so fresh in my mind. I have a quiz tomorrow in physics, and I don't understand orbits, but I just modeled it in class, and I don't even think I need to study. I think that using technology to model that and simulate that taught me the topic in physics better than I would have understood it otherwise. So that's something that was really cool, using technology to like model something else that.
I'll talk about something if you guys don't.
No, I'll give an example. So I'm a music producer and a composer, and I use Ableton Live, which is a digital audio workstation, and I've been making music for 7 years. That would have never have happened if we didn't have a media studio at my school with an entire suite of digital production tools and software and applications to allow me to learn how to do that. Granted, that also takes someone who's willing to take someone on and teach them how to actually use it. So at my school, we have a lot of resources. I mean, we have an entire media studio dedicated just to video production, audio production, editing, photography. And then we have also an IT department and a film studio where we have all MacBook Pros and iMacs where students can come in and just do their film editing if they're part of the IB film course. So that's something that was really great for me because I've been doing music production for 7 years now, to the point where I'm part of a Carnegie Hall ensemble. We're actually playing at March 11th, so if you're there, we're playing at Stern. So all of these doors have opened for me in terms of music production. I mean, I've already played shows. I've met so many producers already that do electronic music production. And that all came from just having all these tools available. So that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get a teacher to teach a course on how to do it, but just have it available and open for the students so that they can show up like I did, just walk into the room and just say, what is that? And they can say, oh, this is a software for music production. I want to learn how to use it. And they literally just gave me the computer and I just messed around with it and I got hooked. And I learned the software by myself. So that's an experience that I had where over time I just learned the software and I met a lot of cool people just through having that available to me.
Great.
Like Leda said, the coolest things I've seen done with my laptop was usually during physics class, where we had different simulations like the orbits and circuits, and software like Logger Pro. Have you guys used it? Yeah, Logger Pro, where we basically have external sensors to measure certain data things like temperature and cameras and basically waves as well. So with those things, we were able to like more understand the concepts behind the physics and do experiments that we physically cannot do within the class. So with physics, it's helped a lot in terms of that.
That's great. Okay. Sorry, I'm managing Twitter also. Okay. Yeah, no, people are. Bit by bit retweeted. So did Script Ed. Kevin, you got a little bit of a shout out. Hey, that's pretty good. Okay. I can go two ways with this. Matt, did you want me to ask that question from Twitter? You did it. You literally. It's okay. Okay. Then I will ask something else then. Okay. What would you say are the biggest challenges that students at your school face in terms of technology? Is that too, I can make it more specific. Is that too vague?
I mean, it's kind of repetitive, but I'd say the distractions part.
Okay.
Where I want to add to this, where a couple of years ago, there's this whole .io game craze.
Oh, yeah,
Agario, Slither.io, and it resulted in a .io wide domain ban for the whole school. that was really fun. And it resulted in like, a lot of distractions in class. So, and of course, there's always Facebook and Twitter, but at the same time, those things are pretty necessary within today's society. So outright banning those on the school network is kind of hard. So it's this balance between like banning things that are completely unproductive and banning things that will hurt people's like education within the school.
Okay. Any other? I can move on, or you can, if you've got something.
I feel like I'm hogging the microphone. At my what was the question? Could you repeat the question to make sure I'm on
The
point?
question was, do you feel like there are any parts of technology that are hindrance to students to learning at your school? A hindrance.
So I feel that what's being taken away a little bit from I guess the learning experience with just technology in general and just having the availability of computers is the lack of that process of creating the discipline of saying, for example, I'm going to study this class for this amount of time, period. And because you don't have the computer to do that, you're literally with a textbook and just taking notes and learning that topic. That's the only thing you're doing. I've seen at my school, and I think this is just general for young students, that they're studying for one class, they have the textbook and their notes, they're watching an episode of The Office on Netflix, then they have their phone right here where they're texting their friends, and then they're listening to music at the same time that they're watching TV. I've seen this happen. They're listening to music while they're watching a TV show. So I think what's being taken away from the students is just that discipline and that build-up of I'm going to do this one thing and I'm going to do that one thing well. We've kind of gotten in the habit, and I think if anyone has anything to say about that, is there's this habit of I'm going to do 5 things at once, and the result of that is you do all of those 5 things, but not to the best of your abilities, and that's just implied with you trying to do 5 things at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
It can be also as well as overuse. I've seen like students just overuse on like technology than they need to. Like you can just go on, as he said, you could just go on a textbook and actually look up or, study from there, or rather than just use a computer per se. But you don't have to actually just like I've seen students just use the computers on every situation. So it's not like I just use the computer for this, which is very necessary. But it's just everything is on like a computer, and so it's kind of like strays from the natural stuff of textbooks.
All right. Next question. Do any of your schools talk to you about their sort of use of your personal data in creating accounts for you, in issuing you devices, in buying services for you?
Well, in the student tech committee, we actually talked about this. We had information from Ms. Moran and how we.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't bad. It's just what permissions the school has, and with that information, we talk to during morning meetings, which is like basically where all the grades coalesce during some periods, and we talk about what information the school has on the user and what information we don't have, and how that affects them. Because a lot of people now are always paranoid with like little stickers on their camera, and it's like the school administration is spying on me, the government's spying on me, but it's not really the case. It's both. Yeah. So yeah.
I remember when we first got our laptops and they set up the accounts, they told us, like, we can see everything you do. And so, like, I'm conscious of that whenever I'm on my laptop, and I'm someone who, a lot of my friends connect their, like, iMessage to their computer so they can text from anywhere. And I don't do that because, like, you know, people think that, yes, they can read our texts and they can look at our computer screens, but they don't have the time. They wouldn't. So I'm someone who doesn't take that risk. You know, I can wait to read my texts. But there really is no check on what they can see on our computer if it is true that they can see everything, because people assume they don't look, which is frankly a dangerous assumption to make. But it is a school computer, and so I think that students who are more aware that it is a school computer are generally, you know, better off to keep. It's better to keep that in the back of your mind and I don't treat it like my home computer, and I want to say the majority don't either. But you know, I never really thought about maybe they can see too much, because I thought, you know, it's such a privilege to have this computer in the first place. But I'm having my
You're allowed to question.
existential crisis. No. But you know,
On a public forum, so nice.
please.
Any other thoughts on that? No? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, the computers aren't ours, so I feel it's implied that you kind of have to respect the computer and the school, because I feel a lot of students, feel that it's their computer because they were given the computer, but it does belong to the school. So I think there is this blurred line of is it the school's responsibility, or do they have that right to look at my information? And I think that the answer is yes, because you didn't purchase the computer. It belongs to the school, so you have to treat it as such, as school property. That being said, as a student, as someone who uses who I use my computer very extensively, it definitely doesn't feel great to know that there's someone looking at what you're doing. But that being said, it's not my computer, so I have to just deal with it.
Go ahead.
We don't usually take our Chromebooks home. It's just on carts, and we use them in school. So it's kind of even more like we don't treat them as if it's ours, but we still. It's like knowing that they're watching everything. We don't watching. What websites we're going to and such, and so we usually don't go on go in Nagario or anything else like that. Just go on your email because it's not our computer, as he said. It's not ours. We didn't buy it or anything like that.
That's true.
I just wanted to add.
Go ahead.
I think it's a matter of trust, because the school obviously has like a lot of information on the laptops, but you know the IT department is not going to be snooping around and just stalking you wherever you're going on your laptop. It's more, even Dwight has said this, it's more that if you infringe upon any school regulations, and it's a question of being expelled or suspended, they can and will look through that data, but they won't be doing it like on a normal basis for someone who's not doing anything bad per se.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So it's just given for you to use as like a resource to actually with your learning. So the bottom line is like you shouldn't be using it for other things either way. So it should just be for like using it to like help you with your learning.
Okay, that's fair. I wanted to open it up a little bit. Does anyone have any questions for them? Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Cole, you just started. Hey, Cole. Introduce yourself. Say hi.
Hey, my name is Cole Napper, and I'm a graduate student at Columbia Teachers College.
Does it need to be?
Instructional technology and a technology specialist. So, and I'm a retired technology officer. So I've seen a few of your faces around. But my question for you is it? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Better.
Better.
All right, so my question for Diego, I think, you were talking about how because of the filters and the restrictions that are in place. Are you here at Dwight?
No, so I go to the UN school.
Oh, the UN school. Okay, UNS. So you were talking about because of the restrictions that you felt limited because of the lockdowns, I guess, and you were saying that, for instance, if somebody wanted to use Word. So my question to you is, why couldn't you just use, for instance, if you were on a Chromebook, why couldn't you use a web-based application like Google Drive, Google Docs, instead of a Word?
So that particular example that I was referring to is in the event that for an exam, because since we're using computers more and more in the classroom, there are some teachers that for the final unit exam will use laptops for an essay, for example. Like the final essay will be like, answer this question regarding history, for example. Answer this question, how did this war or whatnot. But what happens if all students have a Chromebook, and the only way that Chromebook works if it has internet connectivity. So if the Wi-Fi is off, you can't use any of the features that Google Drive can provide. How do they do that? Because then what happens is, and we've had this happen, is that IT has to designate 20 computers for that class and manually go into each one and basically wipe it out and then just reinstall the application to write that. So what I was talking more about is the using only web-based computer removes some of the capabilities that a normal desktop computer is able to provide, like a MacBook Air.
Sure. So, yeah, and I appreciate that very much. I'm very interested in this. So, do you? So, what if you can do stuff online? Sorry. So, for Google Docs, you can use the offline function for that. So.
Yes. For every single class, I believe, almost every single class, we do use Google Drive. So every student has a Gmail account that is linked to a Google Drive. So we have a unis.org domain, and we use that for all Google Drive. So we have access to Google Drive, the Google Docs, Slides, Google Draw, and YouTube as well. So we have all of that with the Unis account that we're provided. So we can do that, but and I think this is more just teacher preferences. For my music final exam, we actually were given other computers, not our personal computers. We were given our own computers that were completely wiped out, and internet was turned off. Every single application, actually everything was wiped out except Word. And then just some audio clips that they had. So I think it's just teacher preferences. It's not really a matter of what the computer or the software can do. It's just whether the teacher feels comfortable to give the students a computer that has internet connectivity and trust them to not go and look up answers. And I think that's just a matter of the teachers knowing how the students use the computer. Because I feel we were talking about this, one of the solutions for the teachers and just the faculty in general to, I guess, cater to the students and make it a better experience for them, the teachers and the students, is for the teachers to know exactly how students are using the computers. Because if they have that insight and they know how they use it and what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, then it can make it easier for both to use the computers and remove something that they don't need or give them something that they do.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you guys very much for being here. This is really, really great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cole. I see Ave, right?
Yeah. First of all, I also wanted to just say thanks for doing this. And I've been sitting here actually thinking about how important it is to facilitate conversations in my school between students and faculty about technology and the technology experience. And hearing you guys is really fabulous. I wanted to hear a little bit from you, if you would, about the distraction issue. One of the things that I find a lot is that the grown-ups, the adults, the faculty, the administration often want to do a lot of blaming of students or devices for the distraction issue. And I often find myself pushing back and blaming teachers and trying to get kind of a shared mindset around the notion that what teachers do or what a classroom should look like or what the job of the teacher is should be different in light of the fact that kids have access and the devices. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about maybe how different teachers and different teaching styles relate to how that distraction issue plays out, either in what you've experienced or what you think teachers might do that would keep students more engaged in the ways that I guess we would agree we would want them to be?
I think the most efficiently run classrooms I've been in, or I'll start with the least efficient run classrooms I've been in are the ones where, you know, it's a teacher and it's a lecturer and they don't really move from their position at the front of the classroom.
I agree with you.
Right? And I mean, those are, it's, how can you not?
I just wanted you to say it, not me.
Yeah, I'll say it. Yeah, I mean, how can you not get distracted? That's a bad thing to say, but if you're sitting there for the entire duration of a class and not every single word being said is keeping you at the edge of your seat, you know, kids are going to get distracted. The most efficiently run classrooms I've been in are the ones where teachers actually tell you to close your laptops at a certain point. They have very specific goals for the laptops or for the technology. So we're going to open this now, we're going to run this program now, and this is what we're going to get out of it. And a lot of kids, you know, they like to take notes on their computers, but I have teachers who actually enforce note-taking by hand because, you know, there's a ton of studies that say that that's actually better for retention. So that the argument of like, I need to take notes on my computer is almost, unless you have a broken thumb, which I've heard, unless that's the only scenario, like fine, you can use a computer. So I think knowing exactly, a teacher knowing exactly what a laptop or any other piece of technology's purpose should be and how to manage when that technology is available, I think that's the way classrooms are run the best. And in general, lecturing just doesn't work the best.
So adding to her response in your question, yeah, I definitely think it's a matter of the teacher knowing exactly what they want to do for that class. In my experience, there have been some classes where the teachers are either they know generally what they're going to teach that class, or they, and I think this is a matter of just the teacher is feeling comfortable with the technology. If they don't, then they don't know what they need the computer for. If they show up to the class and they've for 20 years have been used to doing everything by hand. I have a teacher that's
40.
I have a teacher that's been teaching for 45. So yeah, so that's
Me too.
That's a perfect example. Teachers, my theory of knowledge teacher, because I take IB, takes attendance by hand. She does report cards by hand. All assignments have to be printed out in paper. No Google Docs, none of that, and that just makes it much easier for. First of all, it takes away the ability to say. Which I've heard a lot, probably too much. Schoology wasn't working, Google Drive wasn't working. My internet died, which I don't know how happens. But yeah, so I feel that that's just a matter of the teachers not feeling comfortable enough with the technology to be able to say, I need it for this specific purpose, and then for the other half of the class, we just computers off. I personally learn better just taking notes. And that is just because if I just have everything in one notebook, I don't feel tempted to click on one of my 10 bookmarks. That's either Facebook, YouTube, Gmail. I found myself just like refreshing my Gmail account for no reason just because I have it there. So that's one of the distractions that just comes naturally from just having the computer. Yeah.
All right, great. Oh, we got Kim. Kim's right there.
This
then
is
we'll
a really
go, then we'll
quick
go to
one.
me. Yeah.
So I feel so inspired by hearing you all talk and being someone that works in ed tech. I just want more. It makes me want to talk to my students more. But it also, you all talked about these amazing programs you run, this Bit by Bit and Teen Tech and Spark Tank. Can we go to any of those, and when are they?
Script Ed is a program that just offers to all the other schools that don't have access to, like, you know, technology and basically coding to other, you know, classes. And so, like, they think that's, like, actually really important to them because a lot of, like, there's a lot of, like, jobs that require actually coding that's going to happen. So they actually think it's really important that, you know, we know how to code or know, like, basics of, you know, how to use technology, actually. And so there are programs out there with Script Ed, and there's a program that I applied to, which is All-Star Code, and it's basically a 6-week camp of coding, and so it should be fun.
That's a great resource for us to share with our students as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I'll self-promote here. So, Bit by Bit is on April 21st. It's a Saturday. We have, I'm really excited about it. You know, I've been talking to sponsors, and we have our keynotes, and last year we had girls come from over 200 schools around the city. It was 50% private, 50% public, and so we want to keep growing. So if you know a high school girl, like, tell her, send her our way. And we have a lot of girls come in like a cohort from their school because then they can attend the same panels and the same workshops. And so yeah, I'll say it again, April 21st. I don't have any flyers or anything with me, but bitbybit.dalton.org.
I'm tweeting
I know
it right
it's on
now.
video, so yeah, we would love to have anyone and everyone. It's a Saturday, so it shouldn't be too hard. We made it start later this year because a lot of kids, their excuse was that it was early and they had to come from far away, which is like so valid. So we pushed it back, and we're excited for everyone to be there. Oh, there is so much free food, free swag. I could self-promote all day because this gets me so excited. So yeah.
Thank you. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for Layla, if that's okay. Do we have
I'm
just very short, quick question?
Do it.
So my question to you is because we've had the Teen Tech event for 4 years now, and a recurring experience that we've had is that we have such a hard time getting girls involved with the event. 80% of our attendants are all guys, and I don't exactly know how to get girls excited about coming to the event. We've reached out to many organizations, Girls in Tech, Girls Who Code, He for She, but even so, we still get a very low attendance. So because you work for this particular organization with a lot of girls, what are you looking for in a conference to kind of give that incentive to show up?
So a big part of what Bit by Bit tries to do is just increase visibility, like show girls what they could be. And so I think as much as you can, finding female speakers, successful women in the field, that'll make a huge impact because, going to a conference, even the 20% of girls that would going to a conference and only seeing men is not discouraging, but, seeing women is encouraging. So that's something I would recommend. Go to, the all-girls schools. I know there's some of them. Girls are, this is a scientific thing, the girls are very social creatures. So I would say, girls coming in cohorts has actually been really successful to us, going with your school, going with your friends, groups. So yeah, we've been reaching out to schools, not just asking to send a girl, but, tell your club, like tell girls to tell their friends, because if you can turn the conference into a social event, that makes a huge, huge impact.
I see. Yeah, because something that we've done is just made it very kind of corporate, because that's kind of like the theme. Like what we're trying to do is create an event that's at the same caliber and quality of a conference that you would get if you were already working as a front-end developer for Microsoft, for example. Have that same kind of event for high schoolers with the same kind of information and the same kind of workshops. We actually had a female keynote speaker at our last event in December, and 50-50 female to male speakers, but even so, we still had the same attendance demographics as we had in past years. So that we should definitely talk about that after the panel.
So for Spark Labs, it's basically open to all New York City area teenagers. So that means none of you can come. but if you have students, we'd be happy for you to market the conference to them. It's currently doing its pilot on March 3rd. So it's quite right around the corner, and it's new. It's our first time doing it. So we don't expect it to be great, but we're hoping for the best. It'll be perfect. Come, please. And if I'm just going to try explaining it again. Basically, we're going to have workshops where we train people with specific tools like Photoshop and 3D in the hopes of having them with their own ideas. Like if you have your own idea of making a specific program or game or company to use those tools to eventually make that idea happen. Because a lot of the time, people in public schools are not really as fortunate as people like us who are in private schools or with lots of resources, don't have the teachers or the means to do those things. So they're oftentimes just held back by things they can't control. So Spark Labs aims to help them with those ideas and hopefully cultivate them in some way and hopefully have them pitch their ideas at that conference as well.
I guess I have a 2 or 3 part question for you. But hopefully if this is the last question, this will be a good one to end on. So as students who've been studying technology, hopefully for years now, what have been the most valuable topics, knowledge? And this could be like hard skills or soft skills that you've come away with. And in that sense, like, what are your thoughts on kind of the current trends in the technology world in terms of like interdisciplinary STEAM topics and like design topics? And jumping off of that, what would be your advice for a teacher or a school like planning their curriculum to get the most for their students? And I'm Mimi from British International School.
Thank you, Mimi. That was a big one.
I'd say real world skills. I think a lot of students that talk about that, how we have no idea how to finance or do taxes or anything that's anything that's called adulting. And it'd be helpful to do those things because a lot of times when kids graduate and they go to college, they have no idea what they're doing. And at times it could be detrimental to their education because they don't know what to do with their bills or how to file the taxes, or next thing you know, they're dropping out because they have no idea how to manage their money.
So that's actually a really good point. Me personally, I love to learn. My favorite topic at the moment, my favorite IB class is economics, because 90% of what I'm learning in that class I can apply to after I graduate. So definitely for curriculum building, that was your question, right? As a student, I would be super engaged if what I was learning had a direct relationship with what I can do in the real world. So that being said, for example, learning what the tangent of a line is and how that applies to a curve, I can't apply that to anything. It's great for a test, but I can't actually, after I graduate, that has no real use for me. So in terms of how much time do we have in total for?
This is on Mr. Moran.
Should just each one of us just give our thoughts and okay. So yeah, definitely for in terms of STEAM and just making curriculum, just whatever as a teacher you can do to get the students engaged and have them see the direct results of what they're learning and that they can actually apply it. That would be super helpful.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I would add, I feel completely like technologically literate, if that makes sense. I think I can use a computer, I can use a browser, and I know what to do. And I think that I take that for granted because it didn't start that way. You know, when I see my parents try and use some of this stuff, like not everyone is like that. So I think as much as you can build, skills on a computer that also apply to the real world is very helpful. I personally have benefited a lot and have found a real interest in coding and programming. And I know it's incredibly hard to implement, but if you can take one computer science class, like you're already ahead of everyone else. And so I think as much as you can just pique that interest, it's incredibly valuable. And it shows you you have a laptop in front of you, but it shows you the real power of technology outside of Google searching and typing an essay. So I think, as much as you can be exposed to the power of what a computer can do and what you can make a computer do, shows you the endless realm of possibilities rather than stopping it at, that's where the restrictions sort of get in the way rather than stopping it at one thing, just show the world.
Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, they said applied like skills is actually a really big thing, and so it's main thing that we need to learn, and so we could like actually apply it to our day-to-day lives. And so if we actually learn those things, it'll actually be better than the things we were learning now. Not saying that those things are not needed, but just more. And the advice I'd give to like teachers, I think teachers like with having trouble with the technology, I see you said. Yeah, they should have like a plan for like that we should learn like applied skills. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it should be applied skills.
Thank you. One little bit more. We've got another question after you. So.
Okay, sure. So one last thing for your question, problem solving, like implementing problem solving techniques into the classroom would be super, super helpful. I feel that if students are incredibly engaged when you give them restrictions and you tell them, how can you get around this? As opposed to just complete open book, just figure it out. If you give them a restriction and then they work around that, and then you give them another restriction, if you put them in a box, they can learn so much better as opposed to putting them in a completely open field and just saying figure it out. Because by doing that, it's a step-by-step process, so it's not like you're taking all this huge amount of information. You're given this small amount of information saying use this, and that gets them super excited because then they actively have to figure out how to get around it. So like in STEM or STEAM, that's super, super engaging for a student.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we've got another one from Zach.
My question's kind of related. Hi, my name's Zach. I'm from Corlear School. Do you think there's a difference between like kids who are interested in the media arts and kids who are interested in more of like the programming, math, science realm of computer, of educational technology? Because I tend to think there's sort of two, those are, in my mind, the two like tracks that overlap sometimes, but very often require very different ways of thinking. So in the media arts, you're thinking more you're not thinking in terms of variables and functions and you know, X and Y and gravity and stuff like that. You're thinking more in terms of telling a good story and visual imagery, or if you're doing, like you were saying, you're doing the audio, electronic music. You know, you're not necessarily thinking the same way that you would be thinking if you're programming a robot or creating a science simulation. So my question is, like, have you seen kids or yourselves sort of gravitate more in one direction or the other? And do you think that the distinction is a valid one? And do you think that more could be done, you know, to promote one or the other, or just anything you have to say about those two different ways of using technology?
So the question is basically the division between arts and engineering, basically.
Yeah, right.
So I'll be brief. I definitely think there's a division. I definitely think there's two groups. The kind of creative person who thinks more in terms of story and how can they convey this idea or this their craft, how can they show that to a group of people? And then there's the other group of kind of school of thinking, which is very blocked. Like, if I do this plus this, it equals that result. That's more like the programming kind of thinking. I definitely think there's two different ways. When I'm making music, I'm not thinking about what's behind the software. I'm not thinking about if I turn this dial, what's the programming behind that. That being said, there are really creative ways for those two to blend. There's a fantastic place called Dubspot on the Lower East Side, and they, I think they've actually done that a little bit, teach music producers how to, what goes behind the software. So like if they're doing automations or if they're doing sound synthesis, what's the coding behind that? But I definitely think there's two different schools of thinking in terms of that. And I think one of the main reasons why most people aren't interested in programming or why it's very hard to get them motivated is because it's treated more as extracurricular, except for many schools, for some schools that have a coding class that's part of the curriculum. My school, for example, has one computer science course and is part of IB. Other than that, you're taught a very basic ICT course in middle school, and that's it. So I think the way to get kids motivated for programming and storytelling, because two together can be really, really fun and interesting, and can actually get you much more motivated and can help you get your ideas across much better and help you in general with problem solving, whatnot, is to put it inside the curriculum as opposed to I have to sign up for this coding course outside of my class.
I agree, and I especially agree with the point that sort of together they're more powerful. The combination of the two creates a better rounded thinker. I would add though, I'm a coder, so I'm definitely identify more with the engineering side, and I would say that sort of being given a problem and sort of free reign on how to solve it with code does take a little bit of storytelling, in the sense of like, I need to tell this computer what to do in a very specific order. And so I think that it's a very different type of storytelling, but I think the fundamental way of thinking and problem solving and conveying ideas, I think there's a lot more overlap than originally apparent. Would be my.
All right. Any other questions? Can I do Sabers? So we actually did have a question from a member who couldn't be here. He wanted to know how schools could better facilitate student voice on issues that are important to them. He asked specifically about student protest, but I wanted to broaden it to voice in general.
So with us, I think it's the best way to do so is with a mentor or a scheduled point in time where people get up as a group and have questions or think of ideas as a group. For example, with the student tech committee, the administration has like allowed us to do a lot because of our voice. We got the computer science class based on because of us, and we're getting a VR lab because of our voices, and doing those things without a sort of group without a group is kind of hard because it's not uniform. People aren't sort of on ideas together. So if for example, if you're in a morning meeting and you just ask people to say, hey, do you have any ideas you want to throw out there? People just throw out random ideas and then it'll get done. So with a dedicated group like Student Tech Committee, if you can make one in your own schools, people can have ideas and plan them out and cultivate them and then bring them to administration. And with the supervisors like Mr. Moran who are a part of the IT department, we have a direct connection to the authorities who could bring about change within the school. So that's helped us the most.
What I think we could do is actually just set up meetings, to bring everyone together, actually to just speak out and actually bring their ideas to everyone, because everyone may have some sort of similar idea to that, and we can make progression with that and actually, grow those ideas and make them better.
So something that my principal at my school actually did is for an entire day, he shadowed one of students in my grade. And I think that was a really, really good and effective idea. By shadowing a student and seeing, for example, after a class was done, the 2 minutes that student has to rush from one class to another and have that person-to-person experience of how they use their computers, what they're doing in the classroom. That's, I think, the best way for teachers to learn how the students are using the technology. Literally just shadow them, get one of the students that they know in the grade that are very involved with either clubs or organizations that use technology, and literally just talk to them and see how they use technology, what they do throughout the day, because by seeing firsthand how they use it, as opposed to just asking around other teachers, how do you see your students doing this? It's a much better and efficient way to see firsthand how they do it.
And I would add, quickly, I agree with. I just listen, welcome the criticism. We got a new director of the high school recently, who the first couple weeks of her, of the school year had open office hours and was like, tell me what you want to be changed under the new guidance. I know we have student representatives on the school board, not just in student government, the board of the parents and the faculty and the important people that make the important decisions. But there's student representatives on that board. And so I think opportunities like that, sort of welcoming this criticism, at least shows us that you're willing to hear when we speak. It's not going in one ear and out the other. So I just think as presenting as many opportunities as possible, it makes a huge impact on what we're willing to say and how much we're willing to say. Yeah.
All right. If we don't have any more questions. Oh, we've got Abasi. Oh, I didn't see the mic. I'm sorry.
Abasi Anaton, Director of Technology, Cristo New York High School. So many of your teachers are Generation X, which are individuals that had access to computers. They know how to type. I would say baby boomers probably didn't know how to type unless they were secretaries. After Generation X was the millennials, which a lot of you new teachers are, which they had access to broadband internet all the time. You guys are now the next wave that I guess always had Wi-Fi in your school and always access to devices in your school all the time. I've asked every generation, I haven't asked any students yet, what is your generation called?
Oof.
I'd say we're the tech literate generation.
Well said.
But what does that mean? What does tech literacy mean to you?
It means we know how to use a computer, opposed to millennials and generation.
Ooh.
Burning everyone. I'm burning everyone. And Gen X.
So, you said that you had a teacher that's been in the classroom for 45 years who does no tech, but you have Schoology as your LMS. So
yeah.
how does that work?
So my teacher uses the bare minimum of Schoology, only what she has to. So and what that means is she uses the only things that she needs to say that she is using Schoology. That's only posting assignments and updates. That's it.
And grades?
And grades. Yeah, but that's the only thing. The only thing that she does is post assignments so we can do our work, upload it. But that's really it. I mean, she doesn't use it for attendance or anything like that.
Do you think that that's a hindrance? Do you think it's weird?
It's worked so far. I mean, it's the old-fashioned way of doing it, which I think works. She could be using Schoology, but I think it's difficult in this case just because it's someone who's been so used to doing it a different way.
But is it transparent to the students?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've had multiple cases where we've had to, actually almost every single class we have to help her do something on her computer. But yeah, I mean, it's working. It's not ideal, but it's working.
All right, I'm gonna call the last one.
I'm just gonna one real quick question, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. But if you don't have an answer, you don't have to answer it. I'm just curious. You're all kids who are interested in technology now. Do you kind of see that as part of your future and what you're thinking about doing after high school, or thinking about studying something related to technology in college, going into a career in that area? I'm just curious of what you're thinking about there, and maybe we can close with that. Any ideas?
What are you gonna do with the rest of your life?
What's my name? I'm probably gonna be majoring in computer science, and I love programming and coding and all that. And making applications on computers has been like one of the most fun hobbies I've ever had. And I mean that's pretty much it. It's like one of those things that with this school in mind has enabled me to do. And yeah.
I would definitely like include, an aspect of like coding and programming in my future. Well, mainly because I was exposed to this, and so it's really gonna benefit me in the future and learn more. And
so I'm gonna do music composition for university. So not really directly tech related, other than that I'm using the software. I'm you two, I don't have much experience actually coding. More of my experience in technology is event organizing and networking and just using. I'm technology literate, but I'm not to the point where I know how to code. I'm more in the realm of technology where I use it to just run events, basically. So in the future, I definitely see myself doing in the realm of event organizing and doing more events like Teen Tech New York. I'm still going to have a hand in it after I graduate, after handing it over to the new group. But mostly just music is going to be what I do from here on out.
I think anything I do, anywhere I go, I'm gonna have to face technology. It's essentially unavoidable at this point, which is not a bad thing. Personally, I said it before, I am a coder, so I do see something along those lines in my future. I couldn't tell you what, but yeah, I don't see myself walking away from that anytime soon.
Great. Thank you guys so much. It was really hard for me not to talk more, but thank you guys. This is awesome. Yeah, Matt has things to say.
If you guys want to stick around here for a little bit, we have like 5 more minutes until 6 o'clock. I know, thank you guys for staying so late, and thank you again for just being here. I think, we all learned a lot. I learned a lot just listening from you guys. I think we all had a lot to get from this. If you're with NYCIST and you want to stick around afterward, I think we're going to go to Gabriella's to kind of like debrief on the meeting today too. So that is on, I think it's 91st and Columbus. I have to check, but it's up on Columbus about 3 blocks up from here.
Thank you.